the vast northern wilderness of Japan lies the Daisetsuzan National Park, an unforgiving land of frozen peaks, volcanic valleys, and endless forests. It is a place of beauty, silence, and at times death. In July of 1989, two hikers made their way through the dense forest surrounding Mount Asahi, Hokkaido's tallest mountain. The air was cool, the mist heavy, and the trail almost invisible beneath the summer overgrowth. They weren't looking for anything unusual, just adventure and peace. But what they found that day would haunt them and the nation for decades. As they emerged from the trees into a small clearing, they froze. Before them, carved into the ground with logs and branches, were three massive letters: SOS. Each letter stretched nearly 10 meters across, arranged carefully and deliberately. It was unmistakable, a desperate call for help. The hikers shouted into the forest, hoping for a reply. None came. Then one of them noticed a worn-out backpack lying nearby, half buried in moss and soil. Inside were a few personal items: a lighter, a camera, and a folded map. Everything looked aged, as if it had been there for years. As they searched further, they saw something that stopped them cold. Human remains, a skull, partially covered by leaves, a few bones scattered nearby. Fear surged through them. They turned and ran down the mountain to report what they had found. Hours later, police arrived. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the mountain clearing. The SOS sign loomed eerily in the fading light. The officers began their investigation, photographing the area and collecting evidence. It didn't take long to confirm that these were indeed human remains. But whose? And what had happened here? Over the next few days, investigators combed through the site. They recovered fragments of clothing, 2 old film cameras, and something far more unsettling: a small portable cassette recorder. Inside was a tape, still intact. When they played it back, the first few seconds were silent. Then came a man's voice. The recording lasted just over 2 minutes. The man can be heard calling for help, his voice breaking through the static. Then suddenly, music. A cheerful anime song begins to play, interrupted by faint background noises, wind breathing, the crackle of fire. Some listeners claim they can hear another voice whispering. Others say it's only distortion. Police couldn't determine when or where the recording had been made, but one thing was clear: the SOS sign and the voice on that tape were connected. Forensic tests dated the bones to have been there for several years. The medical examiner could not confirm the exact cause of death. The location was far from any main hiking route, at least 5 kilometers off the standard trail. Whoever had died there had been completely alone. Then, weeks into the investigation, a name surfaced. In 1984, 5 years earlier, a man named Kenji Iwamura, a university student from Tokyo, had gone missing while hiking alone in the same area. He was 24 years old. He had never been found. Kenji was known as a quiet, curious man, a lover of nature and photography. He had traveled to Hokkaido to document the summer landscape of Mount Asahi. His last known contact was a letter sent to his parents saying, "I'll be back in a few days. Don't worry if I lose signal. The mountains are beautiful this time of year." Search teams scoured the area back then, but the terrain was treacherous, covered in deep forest and volcanic rock. After weeks with no trace, he was declared missing. Now, 5 years later, investigators began to suspect the remains in the clearing were his. The cameras found near the body contained photographs. Many were of trees, rocks, and clouds. But the final shots were unsettling. Blurry images of dense fog, tilted landscapes, and one picture that appeared to show the beginnings of an SOS sign being constructed. Kenji had tried to save himself. He must have become lost, injured, or trapped, and in a desperate attempt, built the massive SOS to signal rescue. But no one had ever seen it. Still, something didn't add up. The logs used to form the letters were too heavy for one man to move alone. The area where the sign stood was uneven and steep. Investigators estimated it would have taken at least 2 people to build it in that formation. So if Kenji didn't build it by himself, who did? Forensic experts eventually confirmed that the bones did belong to Kenji Iwamura, but even after the identification, the mystery only deepened. Some of the objects found at the site didn't belong to him. A torn piece of fabric from another jacket, a lighter that matched a model released after his disappearance, and the most puzzling detail, the SOS sign seemed fresher than the surrounding environment. The logs had little decay, suggesting they had been placed there not years earlier, but only recently. Could someone else have found Kenji's remains years later and built the SOS as a marker? Or had another hiker gotten lost in the same spot and used his old campsite to cry for help again? Locals began to talk. Rumors spread through nearby towns of hikers hearing distant calls for help on foggy days. Near Mount Asahi, some claim to have seen a faint figure standing by the clearing, only to vanish when approached. Skeptics dismissed it all as imagination, but there was something undeniably eerie about the whole case. The timing, the tape, and the persistence of that single word carved into the earth, SOS. To this day, no one knows who created the SOS sign. Police closed the case officially, ruling Kenji Iwamura's death as exposure, a tragic accident in the wilderness. But unofficially, the mystery lives on. Some believe that another lost hiker, perhaps decades later, stumbled upon the same site and tried to call for help again, leaving behind newer items. Others think someone discovered the old remains and built the sign as a memorial, not knowing they were disturbing a crime scene. Then there are the darker theories, that the recording was not made by Kenji at all, that the whispers and shifting sounds on the tape weren't just wind, that perhaps something else was up there, watching. Today the SOS clearing still exists, though overgrown and nearly hidden by the forest. The wood has long since decayed, the sign fading back into the mountain. Yet those who have visited the site say they can still feel a strange stillness there, as if the mountain remembers. The SOS incident remains one of Japan's most chilling unsolved mysteries, a haunting reminder of how fragile we are against nature, and how even a cry for help can echo unanswered for years. If you enjoyed uncovering this story, remember, the truth is often buried deeper than we think. Subscribe to Sounds of the Unknown for more real mysteries, unexplained disappearances, and stories the world was never meant to hear. Because sometimes, the most haunting cries for help don't come from the living.